All right, now the recorder is in progress. We can move on to our next agenda item. So we were very excited, at last year's meeting to talk about us receiving the RemotEDx Grant, and we've had a lot of our school districts across the state of Ohio take advantage of it. And it's now time for us to have a little bit of an update on that and where we are with it now and what's left that we can do. So, which isn't a lot, unfortunately, I believe, but I don't want to spoil it for Deb. So Deb, we'll let you go ahead and take over.
All right. So as a reminder, we had $113,750 earmarked for instruction from the different content providers. So those of you who aren't quite as aware, so we had the following content providers participate in this grant opportunity: the Cleveland Museum of Natural History, Columbus Zoo, East Central Ohio ESD, Great Lakes Science Center, Muskingum Valley ESD, Ohio History Connection, SOIDA, and COSI. So those were all of the content providers that participated in this. And the goal was to get more involvement from Ohio schools, since we mentioned earlier that that's where we're lacking. So we were hoping that we could get more involvement if there was no charge. First of all, COSI had to drop out because their programs that they were offering had to do with surgical suites. So knee replacements, autopsies, all the gross things that I wouldn't want to watch.
They're amazing.
I understand. Me watching like I watch a scary movie with my hands in front of my eyes. So that was almost $22,000 earmarked for COSI. So that amount is just remaining. I have reached out to the RemotEDx folks. I have not been able to get a response. I'm still trying. If anybody knows anybody directly, I tried to contact Brian Roger because he was our initial contact when we were setting everything up, and I haven't heard back.
A lot of people changed with the administration changing.
Yeah, so I don't know who.
Is it cabinet? It goes to cabinet, right? With Tom Reed and everyone else.
And maybe this is a question maybe to Mary. Maybe would Erica be helpful with that? Maybe. Didn't she have ties with RemotEDx?
I can reach out to her, let her know. Yeah.
If it goes to cabinet, my superintendent's on the cabinet. I just have to be careful about that reach because we have a concierge.
Sure.
So
yeah, if anybody can get me a connection,
yeah,
that would be fantastic, because I reached out to ask if there was any opportunity for us extending this through the fall so that we could go ahead and utilize that money. What we found throughout this, there was a lot of interest. So the teachers we had a form set up. Kim is managing the form, and teachers would indicate their interest. They selected the content provider and then selected the program that they were interested in. And then there was a whole approval process, and the process for each content provider was different. So it was a little muddy, but it worked. I mean, thank goodness I have somebody amazing, and she made it work. And what we found was, once people got that email from her stating you've been approved, here's the process. If it's Michelle's group, go to CILC and register. If they're registering for Leslie's programs, here we emailed Leslie and the teacher, here's the process, and so forth. Lee's group, it was fill out this JOT form, and then the process would go from there. And that way they all knew what was going on. There were a lot of educators who requested the opportunity to utilize that funding, were granted that opportunity, and then stopped. So they did not follow through with that. We went back and contacted all of them and said, hey, we'd love to help you out. Is there a roadblock? What can we do to help you get these programs scheduled? And just a fraction then followed through with that. So it was really unfortunate that happened. There is still a lot of money left that's why I was hoping, really hoping that we could get this extended to be able to utilize that money.
Without the extension.
June 30.
Wow.
Yeah,
Did the money flow from ODE or from the major council, you know?
from ODE.
You know, the fiscal agent or OhioDLA Grant?
Yeah,
Jump through hoops to get that taken care of.
yeah, we did.
Hmm.
We did. So,
Can schools still register for future sessions, but take advantage of the funding and paying the providers now? So for example, I have,
here's the verbiage.
okay,
Here's the verbiage. The award period for these funds is March 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022. Obligations made prior to the start are not allowable. Okay. All funds must be obligated, liquidated, and a financial expenditure report, FER, submitted by 9/30/22.
so by, oh, so it's 9/30, so that,
Let's get an extra 3.
so that gives us till September, technically, right?
But we have to request the funds by
Yeah.
June 30.
We have to request the funds by June 30.
Yeah. So we're talking about taking COSI out of that.
Mhm.
We're talking $54,000. So, and here's something, I mean, I thought, and we have been trying to find anyone interested, but honestly, people are just, you know what, I'm into the school year.
Yeah.
Well, that's just it. You know,
Yeah,
our frequent flyer here is off for the summer. You know, Laura
Well,
Carr by
even
far
those that we-
schedules
yeah.
more than anyone else and anyone we serve, but she's off.
Right?
I tried to get some summer school interest and I thought I
Yeah.
had some, and then they dropped off. So I'm sitting here now, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna reach back out to Jamie and see, but that's just such a small.
Yeah. I even, when I reached out to all of the content providers asking for additional invoices, and I have to go back and make sure that I've received that, there could be some still outstanding invoices from some of the content providers. I said, if there are any Ohio schools that did not apply for the grant funding,
Yeah,
let us pay for it,
fine.
let the grant pay for it.
Maybe someday, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm hopeful that when we get this course thing together and run it, at some point, there's gonna be a component for content providers too, built into that thing.
Yeah.
That's
I think it would be
part
great.
of our original vision as well. You can't just do it.
It's always still been a challenge when we're working with classrooms
Yeah.
for teachers to commit, they'll commit, but then they don't, the follow through is always the challenge.
Well, and what I did realize when I'm putting my content provider hat on, what I realized was teachers were excited about it. They didn't have a clue about CILC, but CILC is free. And when they create the account that is free, it says you must register a PIN so that if you incur a charge,
Right.
you have someone available. It freaked them out. Well, I didn't, as a content provider, you forget that. So when Kim sent me the list of people who had requested my own programs and hadn't booked yet, I emailed them all directly. I'm like, here are some calendar options. You don't have to book through CILC. So I lose like feedback of it. I lose some things when I'm not on CILC, but I gained some classrooms that had backed off because they didn't have an account.
And that's the same issue we saw with Read Around the Planet.
Right,
Oh, was
It
it?
was a collaborative program that was 100% free,
right.
but when my teachers went to register for it, they came back and said, what's asking me about funding? And I explained to them again that, this is not something that you're being charged for, but they're scared because I know in my district, we do tell people, you order something without a PO, that's out of your pocket. And so they're nervous of that, and I don't blame them.
Should we have done a tutorial or something to walk them through the steps of to know
Well,
what
you
to expect?
can't because each district's policy is different. I mean, they have to put billing information in CILC, even though they're registering for their free account. That's why they backed off.
Yeah, right.
So,
How many meat bars can we purchase with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, Todd.
Legal
Yeah, no
thing.
kidding. It would be great if
Oh,
we
you're
could.
right. That's right.
So, I mean, one of the things that I thought of was, again, I'm waiting on some final invoicing, but roughly 325, 350, let's say 350 programs provided through the grant. If we added an additional $50 per program to the provider.
For the
Or
service of
$100
planning,
for the
yeah.
service, for everything. So if it was $50 per program based on 350, that would be an extra $17.5. If we did $100 per program, that would be an extra $35. So that, but that's open for discussion. But that was an idea that I had.
Paul, I'm not sure your question was answered. I know we read the verbiage, but I think you were asking, can we prepay for services or programs?
I don't think it was clearly defined.
That I know, and that's why I'm trying to get that clarification, but that's the verbiage that I have. That's all I have to base it on. So my question to everyone is, and I sent it to Michelle and Leslie, because we've been talking about it, what is your interpretation of this? I mean, what do you think? If it's a consensus that let's go ahead and do this, then as long as y'all have bail money in case I have trouble.
Typically, most of the grants that I've had experience with,
I would believe.
the grant will say something to the effect, and the program must be implemented by, or, courses must be completed by. I didn't hear that in that verbiage. I just heard it needed to be expended and spent by a date with really no qualifications on, timing or implementation, completion of course, et cetera.
Todd, when we originally went after this money, it was extremely wide open as for the use cases. A lot of it probably went for equipment, other types of services, and we just dreamed up this thing through the DLA of buying programs. So the people that actually created this opportunity probably didn't even foresee this as being a factor.
Well, that's why I don't think that's why it's not addressed.
Yeah.
So I think our interpretation is a good one. I think you can prepay for programming.
I think we can too. And
Okay.
so
I'm all for it.
maybe we look at that, and is it something that we would do where we would have to do it still as a request, meaning like North Ridgeville City Schools is going to request 15 programs with Columbus Zoo? Or can that be, we are taking the remainder of it, pushing that to the content providers and saying, you must invoice us for this amount, and then you must provide free programming for that. But I mean, I think we definitely need to make sure that we have documentation that the money that is going there is actually being spent for that, so that I think we kind of would need to have that to protect ourselves.
So then the only thing then we would have the co-sign money that, do we have to make a decision to just send that back or ask permission / forgiveness to allocate that to maybe a content provider that wasn't in the application, or a content provider that underutilized, or?
I think that money can be reallocated. I don't think that's an issue. Now, Muskingum Valley is the only one that went over. She had 9,000. There was 9,000 earmarked for her programs, and she spent over 10.
Is that because she offered the Kinder Kids?
The Kind Crew.
The Kindness Crew.
Yeah,
the Kind Crew was for what, $450 a session, and that wouldn't have been her original pricing.
Yeah,
I'll bet
there were
that's
5 sessions per.
Which it's
per
awesome.
thing. It is great,
Yeah.
and she asked me about that, and I said no. If you spend it, because I'd rather have the money spent.
Yeah.
Because I knew COSI wasn't using that, so.
You got to try to talk to ODE. We'll do that. We'll figure somebody out.
I would say, I guess what we're proposing isn't money grab.
No.
I am a
It's for
content provider.
services. It is for services.
It is for services. I know that if you're going to send me everything that we had listed, I'm going to put that in, and every time in Ohio books, I'm gonna not invoice them.
Pre-purchasing services utilizing grant money is a common practice, unless it's prohibited by the language in the grant. And I didn't hear that in that verbiage, but that's a common practice, is to prepay for services so that you don't have to send the money back.
Would we be able to?
Recommending. I
Pardon?
was trying to follow, you were recommending giving the content provider some additional funds to provide additional content to Ohio
Yeah,
schools.
because we had talked about that before, about that possibly being an option to go, and,
Yeah, just the documentation though, I think is gonna be important.
oh, for sure. Yeah, and I have all, I mean, obviously, we have everything.
Well, wouldn't the documentation just be, because it's the content provider that would be invoicing us, right?
Correct. The content provider would be invoicing, but we would, if we're going to be, let's say $10,000 is going to the Cleveland Museum of Natural History, we would love to see a tally that it has gone for the following programs, just as a projection piece.
Yeah, I agree. And that could all be on the invoice.
Yeah, because it doesn't go to Lee's brand new studio as much as we'd love it to go to Lee's brand new. But I mean, but and we want to make sure we're protecting our.
Right, because each
Absolutely.
entity received from the content providers lists
Yeah.
each individual program, the date of the program, the school that it was, to whom it was provided. So we have all of that documentation. So it would be a matter of prepaying that chunk of money and then following it up with giving me that documentation after it's provided.
By September 30th.
Would have to be by September 30th.
And I think that's a win-win for Ohio schools.
I totally do too. I just want the schools to be able to have the programs. I want them
That's
to
the intent.
experience it, get excited about it, and know that this is a great opportunity for their kids.
Love it.
There's a
I
content.
gotta, since you were talking.
Oh, it makes perfect sense. Yeah, it does.
I'm sorry, Lee.
Oh, is it, sorry, I really have to get on the road because I have a half an hour drive to unload stuff that I'm supposed to be over there. So, but I'm sure if we got Marty on the horn in this next couple of weeks, because we got to catch schools before they close. So there's a lot of places getting ready to shut it down. But if that prepayment is an option, I'm sure we could scoop up a bunch more.
We had to finish it, yeah. no
Well, I mean, I can book 25 of Lee's sessions from LACA before I leave today, based on who books in September now.
Yeah.
We don't
Yeah.
need to.
I mean, I think it's win-win for content providers, and it is easy to provide the documentation.
Would that be okay for us to do the documentation for the teachers? Because that was one of the little pushbacks I got, was teachers were like, oh, I don't have time to fill out all those forms. And I said, well, I'll do it for you. I'll fill out the forms that Deb needs, what the heck? So if we can do it on our end and say, here's the documentation that these programs are going to happen September, whatever,
If you said, I don't want to give
Go ahead.
that's
Yeah.
okay.
I will add, and I know that we're trying to spend down the grant money, but if I were doing that negotiation, I would try to negotiate a lower cost because we are prepaying. I know that's counter to what we're trying to do, but
That's great.
We'll keep the recording going, team, and I'll watch it later. And yes, I'll relay all of this to our scheduler crew as soon as I get back from my drop-off missions today.
Okay, so just to sum up for our
Thanks, Lee.
next, thanks, Lee. Great. Thank you for joining us for the time you had. Thank you. So just make sure we're all on the same page for next steps. We're going to, one, reach out to confirm, or do we feel that comfortable that we can just move forward?
what is the consensus?
I feel we can just move forward.
I say move forward, but Deb, it's your superintendent that probably has to sign off on that one more time.
I think you should have that conversation if you could, with them, just to make sure they're okay with or
Oh,
your,
who's your person? Do you have to report to anyone?
We're part of the PBS station.
Oh, I forget that. Yes, so, yeah.
They don't.
so here. Well, whoever needs.
Yeah.
$1,000 for counseling. That's great.
Okay.
I-
So I'm gonna look at the money left. I'm gonna divvy that out. I'm gonna contact all the content providers and say, this. I'll figure out how to word that.
Yes.
So here's this money for prepayment of services, programs delivered in the fall to be delivered by November 30th. I will need an
To Ohio
invoice for this
schools.
money to Ohio schools. And then I will need follow-up documentation as to who they were, what programs were provided.
Yep.
And to whom.
Yep.
To which Ohio school.
Yep.
Right. At that point, I think the content provider would be on the hook to deliver the service. That would be the only
Right.
gotcha. As long as
Right.
they deliver the service,
Yeah,
you
but I
got no
think-
problem.
And I think the only wild card in that is COSI, unfortunately, and I think we're just, to the point where we're almost telling them they're done.
Andrew has not gotten back to me. I haven't talked to him since probably November.
Yeah.
He
He
hasn't
has not
responded.
responded to anything.
No, so he is the one that said to me, we're out, and then we'll talk. Oh, they haven't.
They are not a member right now.
If anybody's feeling uncomfortable about it, let me just ask this. When we initially applied for the grant, couldn't we have applied for 3 years of service?
No.
No.
We
This
know.
grant
No.
was so unique and
Yeah.
they didn't even have a grant template to follow as we were writing it. It literally, it was the first time that I've gotten a grant even attached to ODE that didn't have a writing framework. It had bullet points to suggestively cover. There wasn't a budget template. There wasn't, it was just very, very odd. You could tell they were ready to launch, but they hadn't thought about the burden of paperwork, especially when this particular one ended up tying back into CCIP. And I'm like, we don't have a framework. We don't have the tables. We don't have the proper fund codes. So no, it was both of the ones I was a part of for RemotEDx. The template was extraordinarily broad and it led to questions after the money was received because it was flexible.
Pretty big, a lot of money in a crisis.
And I didn't see, Laura, I didn't see I saw your chat coming through, but then I couldn't read it.
Oh, I got it.
There's a couple of questions in the chat that Rebecca had. Rebecca, I don't know if you just want to go ahead and ask your questions to the room, might be easier.
Sure. And it was because my audio kind of hiccuped. And I wanted to be sure, do the dates of the events, the service of the sessions, have to be by September 30th? Or just does the filing for them have to be by September 30th?
As a content provider, if we move forward with this, I would probably just list that the services were scheduled.
Okay, so if a teacher, because honestly, I have a class on Tuesday and I have 18 teachers who I was all excited about telling them, hey, quick, you got to get this scheduled by the end of this month. And you'll have the ability to have an event by September 30th, but it now sounds like the target's moving a little on me, and which is great if they have more time, but I want to be sure I give them accurate information. So I have class on Tuesday. I'm telling them what?
Be done by September 30. If they can, book and hold by September 30.
Okay, so they don't have to book by June 30th. So I thought that was the original.
If they can book by June 30, that'll be cleaner.
Yes.
Okay,
But then the idea is that we're gonna prepay the content providers.
Because you're gonna have to expend all the money by the 30th, right? You gotta turn the FDR report in.
Right. Yeah.
At that point.
so right now, if they book by June 30th,
Sounds
we
like.
would get to use the form that's out there, that has been out there. I get that. Let's say it's July, it's August, and they're like, oh, okay, she told me they're gonna prepay. I do know I can get something from the Cleveland History Museum, but now how do I go through? So I'm thinking that form won't be the form they use in the future.
It can be.
It could be.
We could still use that?
We haven't gotten that far yet.
But yeah, Kim
But it
can
could be.
still
Right.
route it to us. So
I
if
assume
they,
it would still be routed the same way.
yeah, we just won't invoice. Content providers wouldn't need to invoice if we already received the money, but I actually, as a content provider, would prefer the form if it's being
Yeah.
filled out.
That's gonna be better for, on my
Yeah.
end, because then I have the documentation of who is.
Right.
I think talking through it, it does sound like that would be the documentation that we would
Yeah.
need anyways.
Right.
I guess then we would, yeah, and we just make sure, we just maybe need to update the form to take off any dates on it.
Yeah, but then I still need confirmation from the
Right.
content providers that the program was
took
actually
place.
delivered,
Right. Okay,
in case people don't follow through. All right.
so we want to still use the form. We would love it to be done before June 30th. But we feel confident that we'll be able to do it after that,
By September 30th.
by September 30th. Or is it even beyond that? If we're prepaying the content providers and they have the money,
And it hasn't been spent.
And it hasn't been spent.
Then yes, I
they
would-
technically still owe programming, don't they?
I think
Yes.
what's gonna happen is we owe the programming, but it's gonna get muddy if we don't say we've delivered the programming, if they hold us to the dates. I think we have to be prepared to say that programming has been allocated it as transparently as possible if we don't have a firm answer on.
I think once we've paid the content provider, scheduling is between us and the district and the content provider.
Mhm.
I don't,
That's how I interpret it too.
because you can do the FER because you've expended the money, you spent the money.
Truth.
I don't think the September 30th date, that's just a deadline to file the FER. There's nothing in the grant that says when it has to be provided.
Hmm.
I mean, we can do that for comfort's sake.
Mhm.
I just don't think that's a true deadline for delivery.
I'm with Todd on that.
Yeah, I just didn't want to make these calls on, I don't know, I needed it to be a discussion and a group consensus that
Mhm.
that this is what we're gonna do. Okay, well, I will move forward with that. Thank you for that lengthy discussion. Then the other thing I know that Tom and Paul were working on was getting the showcase and the best practices training posted.
And that is, I have that, we have those videos from OETC, and those are in our
Shared drive?
shared drive. I'm just trying to think where, I gotta find out where.
Okay.
So we have collected all that.
Great,
So that's good news. We just need to put it somewhere.
yes.
And so I guess the question of that is, do we add that to the website? Or do we just throw, or do we feel comfortable throwing it into our YouTube channel and then just providing links?
I would do that.
And I would, as we use our YouTube channel more, and Kelly will help us with that. We want to always do on the media, like the some more, the subscribe on the end of the YouTube link so that we boost
Yes.
our,
Yes, because if you drive them to YouTube, then they're more likely to look at your channel and look at what else
Right.
is available. For
So-
sure, totally agree.
So that's on my plate, though. I'll work on that.
Okay,
And I have to have that done by, not by June 30th, do I?
get it done, whenever you can get it done.
Well, because I'm not gonna be able to get it done by June 30th, but I could get it done by September.
Okay.
All right. Excellent. Okay, I think we're at a point now. Well, why don't we, do anything else, Deb? I'm sorry.
No, I think that's funny.
Why don't we do a break on our recording? And we're gonna try and get some lunch things kind of
Watch it, see.
put together here, just so we don't, you